So good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the January 18, 2022 meeting of the Woodbridge Board of Education to order at 7:02 p.m. With a reminder to all those watching and participating to kindly mute your microphone to avoid background noise. This meeting is being held virtually via WebEx and is being recorded. The recording will be available on the district website. I will now call the roll. I'd like to remind board members to unmute for those people who may be phone calling in. Dr. Maria Madonic.
Here.
Dr. Jay Daya.
Here.
Ms. Brooke Hopkins.
Present.
Mr. Jeff Hughes.
Here.
Dr. David Ross.
Here.
Dr. Michael Strambler.
Here.
Ms. Erin Williamson.
Here.
And Ms. Sarah Beth Delpree is on her way, Marcia, just so you know. Not present at the moment. I'm Lynn Piazzik and I'm the chair. Staff in attendance this evening include Dr. Jonathan Budd, Superintendent, Mr. Richard Huot, Interim Director of Business and Operations, Ms. Cheryl Kiesel, Director of Special Services, Ms. Annalisa Sherman, Principal, Mr. James Sapia, Assistant Principal, and Ms. Marcia DeGennaro, Clerk of the Board. So I welcome the public. Wish everyone a happy new year. It's our first meeting of the year. This evening, I'm going to ask Brooke to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Lynn, I'm gonna jump in on that.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Jeff, thank you very much. Correspondence, Sarah Beth is not on, but I do know that in the board packet, you will note that there's correspondence from dated January 12, 2022, signed by Kim Klein Franklin, President of the Woodbridge Education Association, and that can be found in board book. Marcia, do you know if there's any other correspondence?
I'm not aware of any other correspondence, Lynn.
Thank you very much. Public comment. If there's public comment, would you please raise your hand in the participant list? I see Kim Franklin, who would like to make public comment. I'll read the statement, Kim. The board welcomes public participation and is appreciative of the feedback we receive from the community, whether it is through letters or public comment at meetings. If you are making a public comment at tonight's meeting, please be aware that the board will not respond to any comments made during the public comment period, except to clarify issues. We will take into consideration your comments, and when appropriate, district administration will follow up with you at a later point in time. We ask that speakers limit their comments to 3 minutes. Ms. Madonic will serve as the timekeeper this evening. Kim, will you just introduce yourself and tell us your title, please?
Sure. My name is Kim Franklin. I'm the president of the Woodbridge Education Association. Do you want me to continue?
Absolutely.
Okay. So first of all, none of what I'm going to say at all diminishes the hard work that our administrators and our superintendent, Jonathan Budd, have been doing to do the hard work that is involved in this COVID environment. So I want to first acknowledge and appreciate their very hard work that they've been committing to our school. So it is my role as the president of the Woodbridge Education Association sometimes to have to bring forward specific challenges and issues or concerns that affect our teachers. and challenges and concerns that I've already brought forward to our administrator, Annalisa Sherman, and also communicated to Dr. Budd. So I have two asks from what I'm going to share tonight. And the first is to our, that the reality that we're experiencing right now is that our administrators have been conducting contact tracing because they know that it is kind of what Jonathan has said, the moral responsibility, and we totally appreciate that responsibility that they are committing to for our school. So what I want to say is that our administrators are becoming contact tracers, and this task has unfortunately resulted in the loss of our leadership in our building. We have functioned in a triage modality, and we all know this type of model is never sustainable. We want to return our administrators back to the leadership of our school and helping our school grow and supporting our teachers. We have a lot of new teachers in our building. At this time, we're spending about $500,000 for our administrators to conduct contact tracing. And so the teachers have asked, some teachers have offered a suggestion, which is, can this responsibility be shifted to the Quinnipiac Health Services? Or can we possibly consider a teacher in this role or function? Those are just some suggestions that teachers have offered. So we need to think about a plan to move forward because COVID may be with us for some time. And what we have in place is really not a sustainable plan going forward. We may lose great teachers as a result of what we have in place. If we don't support our teachers, we all know the impact is to our students. So that my first ask is that we reevaluate our contact tracing process and consider a more sustainable plan moving forward. So on to my second ask. Our teachers are exhausted and stressed, and we have implemented a dual teaching model for the past 2.5 years. With the increased COVID cases that affected our students, this dual teaching model has been on overdrive. Teachers can have 4 or 5 or half of their class online, and while students in class wait for their teachers, teachers are basically helping to log in students. They're providing directions, they're managing technology. Meanwhile, students in class wait, and potential behaviors ensue. So our responsibility as educators is the students within the walls of our school. However, for the past 2.5 years, we have been reaching into the community and teaching to the students at home and to the students in our classroom. This dual teaching model is an inequitable plan as it compromises the integrity of teaching and diminishes the quality of education for our students who are in person. These students who are in person are not receiving what we as educators are mandated to do, which is to instruct the students in our classroom and provide differentiated instruction. The Connecticut State Department of Education, the CSDE, mandates we not provide remote instruction. I'd like to repeat that the State Department of Education mandates that remote instruction not be an option of instruction. However, we continue to provide a model of instruction that is not aligned to the State Department of Education. We have essentially recrafted the education delivery model on behalf of the State Department of Education. However, the State Department does not honor nor acknowledge remote instruction as a school day.
Kim, can
As a
you
district-
wrap up? Because you're 3 minutes.
will.
away.
As a district, we fell into this model because we support our students and families. However, this model is not a sustainable one. Every day, our teachers walk into our school building and their classrooms not knowing who's going to be in person or who's going to be remote. When teachers were told to provide some form of remote instruction during the start of 2021, it's only going to be a minute, so just please. COVID cases were not as high, and there was no approved vaccine for students. Therefore, teachers conceded, to a plan knowing there might be some students remote and the hope of a vaccine. However, no one ever anticipated there would be the numbers of remote students that we have now. We have been told the numbers will get back down and they will subside. But regardless of the numbers, continuing to implement a dual educational model is not a sustainable one, nor is it aligned to the State Department of Education. So we have aligned our mitigation plans to the CDC. Therefore, my second ask is that we align our education delivery model to the Connecticut State Department of Education and bring us back to being compliant with the CSDE. So in summary, my two asks, so if I could just recap. The first is that we reevaluate the current contact tracing process and who conducts contact tracing and bring our administrators to the roles of supporting our teachers. The second ask is that we put a hard stop to remote instruction, whether this be February, March, or April, and allow teachers to return to the job of educating the students who are in school and in person. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. I'm looking to see if there are any other hands or any other public comment.
I don't see any, Lynn.
I don't either. Thank you, Maria. Moving on to the next agenda item, the consent agenda. The minutes from the December 20, 2021 regular meeting are included in this evening's consent agenda, along with both a budget summary and a detailed financial report. Is there anything that the board wishes to extract, from the consent agenda? Seeing none, may I have a motion to accept the consent agenda? Jay makes a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented. Maria seconds it. I'm gonna try for raising our hands for this one because I don't think it's contentious at all. All those in favor of accepting the consent agenda as presented? That's unanimous, Marcia. Thank you. Moving on to reports. 3A, Superintendent's Report, Dr. Jonathan Budd.
Thank you very much. Almost all my comments this evening will be organized in the first three reports you see on our agenda: our Safe Return Plan and COVID-19 guidelines, our report of the Ad Hoc Student Culture and Community Committee, and our mid-year progress update on district and school goals for this school year. But before I turn to those three reports, one very important reminder. I wish to remind all members of our community that this is the time of year that, unfortunately, weather-related closings, delays, or early dismissals must be considered. And these decisions are some of the most agonizing decisions that superintendents make. So briefly, to help the community understand this process and their role in it, please know that I make every decision for the district after consulting with a professional meteorologist used by many Connecticut superintendents, with the other BOA superintendents, with the Woodbridge Police Department, with the Woodbridge Public Works Department, and with our own facilities manager, Mr. Asparo. I receive important, distinct guidance from each member of that group, and I then seek to make the decision as timely as possible, balancing accuracy with timeliness. Multiple members of our staff and I then communicate the decision in multiple redundant ways, including our website and 9 television and radio networks, to ensure that our communication is as widespread as possible. But I would encourage each family listening tonight to check your PowerSchool account to ensure that all your phone numbers and email addresses are accurate, as these are what is used by our Swift K-12 notification system. We hope that decisions to close or delay school are few and far between. However, recognizing that each member of our community, child as well as adult, represents an invaluable human life, such decisions are sometimes necessary, and we seek to communicate them as well as possible under sometimes very challenging circumstances. So with that said, I'd like to turn to our first presentation of the evening, our update on the Safe Return Plan and COVID-19 guidelines. And just let me share my screen with you, please. Lynn, you're on my screen. Can you see that somewhat large? Okay. So we have a few pages of updates here, and I'm going to start with a page of data, then a page of mitigation strategies, and then move to potential next steps. So we are now at about 85 days into the school year. That's 85 days of in-person learning for all of our Beecher Road school students. And as we've said in writing, but I'll clarify tonight, remote learning as an option for an entire district has been rejected at the state level. We certainly have some members of our community who wish that, given transmission rates, the entire district could be remote. The state has made clear as recently as this morning that that is not an option. And as an agent in some ways of the state to provide public education, our district must comply with that. We have seen, like everyone else in the state of Connecticut and the country and the world, a spike in COVID cases. And you see that in the next bullet. When I presented to you at the December meeting, we had 26 confirmed COVID cases in our community this year. And for this bullet, what this means is somebody in our community, adult or student, reported having COVID. That didn't all mean contact tracing, because some of these people had been absent from school or work long enough that the contact tracing didn't apply. Since our December meeting, there have been 131 additional COVID cases in our community. And I have clarified there that in-school transmission, unfortunately, is no longer possible to rule out in all cases. There are some cases where we can't rule it in or we can't rule it out, and that's frankly because there are multiple examples of COVID in our community, including in families, in play groups, etc. So for full transparency, because I've reported at previous meetings that we do not have evidence of in-school transmission, I must reliably report that I can't say it's ruled out. Of great interest to us, I think, is that a little over 60% of our students and nearly all of our staff are fully vaccinated against COVID-19. The staff, of course, happened to get to that number a few months ago because there's a governor's mandate. That staff, the student number rather, is much higher than the state and the national average. And certainly we encourage people to keep considering full vaccination for children. At this point, and this number goes back to yesterday, 13% of our students and about a quarter of our staff have tested positive for COVID this school year. And there are some additional people who had tested positive last year. We believe, as Kim mentioned, that contact tracing is in fact something close to a moral imperative. It is a way for us to advise our staff and our families, individuals with whom they've come in contact who have tested positive for COVID. It is an allowable way for us to share that information. Kim has pointed out what we would say on this slide as well, that this increase in cases has been challenging. It's been challenging for doctors, for the health district, for administrators in every district. We've modified protocols to accommodate the increased numbers. For example, in the past few days, families whose children are fully vaccinated no longer receive phone contact. They receive email contact and are asked to confirm. We've also moved in the past few days, responsibilities for certain clerical aspects of contact tracing to our administrative assistant staff and reserved the administrative staff for those conversations that, based on medical privacy or student record confidentiality, must be done administratively. And we are pleased with the option that students in isolation or on quarantine continue to have the option of learning remotely. Kim, the WEA is right that our teachers are working hard because of that, as are the specialists who are supporting them. We appreciate the WEA's negotiated agreement toward that end. And actually, I'm told that some districts in some other parts of the state have started this in the past few weeks to correspond with the upward trend and provide some transition so that students socially and emotionally are connected with their classmates and their teacher. The data then is on this slide. If I can speak in more general terms to now some mitigation strategies, the optional in-school screening testing continues. That has seen some increase the past few weeks as testing in the community may be more difficult. If your child is here at Beecher, your child could be tested every Wednesday afternoon. And the state has changed their perspective in the past 2 weeks. It used to be that this was only available for unvaccinated students. It is now available even for fully vaccinated students, and that's to recognize that it's hard to get tests elsewhere. So we're at about 120 students now. We also have many rapid self-test kits. These come from the Department of Public Health. We're distributed to all districts. And our students and our staff are asked to take one or encouraged to take one if they're in either of the 2 categories listed there. From the State Department of Education, we've distributed to each member of our staff 4 N95 masks. And on behalf of our nursing supervisor, I have added this last bullet. Many, many thanks to every family who monitors symptoms and keeps their child home when the child really should not be in school. Very important for the safety of our adults and our children here. What might next steps be? In conversation with both the Quinnipiac Valley Health District and with our medical advisor, we are cautiously able to offer this first bullet. The peak of school-based positive results may have occurred. Now, I'll be back in February. We'll have an update. But we're seeing even evidence over the past few days of that. And in her own practice, our medical advisor is seeing some trends that are very positive in that regard. That obviously any illness of any person is of concern, but the trend makes a difference for us. We will continue to assess mitigation strategies and revise them when appropriate, but I would say we are at the moment of January 18th, a little bit close to the peak to change mitigation strategies. And we will continue to make decisions with advice and counsel as appropriate from the entities listed there. And in some areas, the State Department gives options. In some areas, they give directives. There is a range of ability for the district to decide on certain of these things, and some things have to be decided more quickly than others. I am positive or nearly positive that the board may have questions, comments, concerns, etc. So I'll stop sharing my screen so I can see more of you and be happy to answer.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Board questions. Are there any board questions? Brooke?
I have a question about, is contact tracing necessary at all in the schools? Since 61% of the students are vaccinated and 99% of the teachers are, it seems like we're wasting a lot of time and energy on contact tracing. And the same option is still they're doing the sit and stay. So just wondering, why make it that much harder?
Mm-hmm. I think, Brooke, that's a legitimate question a lot of superintendents are grappling with. In fact, this morning on a call with superintendents, the commissioner and then the commissioner of education and then the commissioner of public health encouraged superintendents who 2 weeks ago had moved away from contact tracing to consider going back to it, because we have a wide range of people in the community and certainly some who feel all sorts of ways on this topic. I would say from the contact tracing we do, we get quite a bit of positive feedback from parents, thankful for the knowledge, right? Now, that's not going to continue, I would say, to be the same position, or probably shouldn't be for the next 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, etc. But I would say at the moment, Bethany, Orange, and Woodbridge are continuing it based on what we feel is the vulnerability of our student body overall.
So we need to find a way.
Revisited as time goes on, for sure.
Right. So then we need to find a way to support the admins and teachers to do this, because it does seem rather silly.
Erin?
I mean, I have a follow-up to Brooks, which is where I think at this point, maybe more onus needs to be put on the parents. I appreciate what you're doing in terms of you call us and or you send
I'm
email
sorry, Erin.
Aaron, you have a really
ask us to
unstable.
confirm. I also think
Aaron,
that says to. Hold on,
You
let me
have-
try
I'm
again.
sorry, Aaron.
Aaron, it's very hard to hear you because you keep, like, every fifth word we're maybe hearing.
Is this better? Am I better now?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. I guess my question is, can more onus be put on the parents at this point? And to that, I know that you're calling us and you're emailing us and asking us to confirm. But at this point in the pandemic, I feel like you could say, parents, it's our expectation that you check your email every night or every morning. And we will be sending out an email to let you know if your child has had exposure. But the idea of like us needing to then reply to confirm and you needing to check that off, that may be a way for us to still have the information that our children has been exposed. But again, it puts the onus on us as adults, as responsible adults that send our kids to you every single day, as opposed to you having to confirm that every single one of us has, yes, indeed gotten the message.
It's a
I'm
good
wondering if
suggestion,
there's
yeah.
a middle ground that can be achieved here.
Yeah. It's a good suggestion, and let me talk to the other BOA superintendents, and by that I mean the K-6 superintendents, about that as well.
Thank
If
you.
I could just jump in, I have to agree with
Hey, Joe.
Aaron. Yeah, I think any way to relieve the administrative burden, something we should need to investigate. I fully agree. A lot of the onus should be on the parents. We all know what to do now. I think other parents will agree. But if we can investigate having the parents take more onus and less administration tax of this contact tracing, I think it's a step in the right direction.
Perfect, thank you.
David, do you have anything? I'll go back to you in a minute, Aaron. Nope. Maria?
No, nothing to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Jay? Okay. Mike?
Jonathan, sorry.
Go ahead, Jay, sorry.
Jonathan, I agree with Lynn, Jeff, Brooke. Is there a way to make this electronic so that it becomes more streamlined? You only have the cases where parents need to contact you because there may be some underlying health condition, etc. And so they do want to speak to somebody in the administration. That would, I think, lower the burden and free you up for the administrative tasks that you have been hired for. This is that additional task that you've taken on board. Could this be transferred over to the medical staff in the school? That may be an appropriate angle that we might want to explore.
Very good, thank you.
Thanks, Jay. Mike, do you have anything?
Yeah, I'm very open to these proposals that other folks have put on the table. I do have one question though. You mentioned that the commissioner recommended that some of the districts that were on that call go back to who stopped contact tracing, go back to that. Was there a rationale offered for that?
I think the rationale I tended to hear the most in discussion, Mike, was that there are pockets of every community who feel very strongly that they should learn information about children around their child who are infected with COVID, particularly because many people who are contracting COVID are fully vaccinated. So it's not the case that vaccination is a total safeguard. I'm not saying it's not a good idea, but certainly full vaccination does still allow somebody to get COVID. So in communities, and we know some superintendents like this where contact tracing has ceased, both staff and families, at least some in those communities, have really opposed that move for safety reasons. And I think the commissioners are responding to that.
Thank you.
Sarah Beth, do you have anything? I might have lost Sarah Beth. I'm guessing not.
She's just walking in, Lynn. She's setting up here.
Okay. So I'm gonna go to Aaron and then Maria.
I just wanted to note what was said about the dual teaching, and I do think that it's a significant concern of, I think, mine, and I would guess others. Given the burnout that currently exists among nationwide among teachers, I know that this is not, a Woodbridge specific thing, but given the teacher burnout that we're experiencing, and given all that we're asking of parents, um, I am wondering if that needs to be rethought a little bit, in terms of what we're asking of teachers. I I will say, from personal experience, having had a kiddo at home recently in this situation where with COVID, and our teacher was amazing and offered the remote. But I also think there's something to be said for, like, it's okay for kids to have sick days where they're not plugging back into the school system. And so, given that we now have the test to stay and or monitor, I don't know the name, the monitor to stay, the test to stay, whatever it is, I feel like for kids that have to be home because they have COVID, like, it's okay to have a sick day. It's okay to have a sick day where you're not then plugging in. And if that is going to be something that significantly decreases the stress level of teachers, if that's where we're at, where most kids are able to stay and monitor, I think that that is something that we really need to reassess. Again, given the idea that, like, you have sick days, and you have sick days that I had sick days. We all had sick days growing up, and you're just sick. And I think we're expecting a lot of our teachers right now, and it might be a point to reassess. I hear what you're saying about us being on the back end of the curve, but I also think that this is something that's cumulative in nature. And I don't want to give the impression that just because we're on the back end of a curve, that all of a sudden this dual teaching will somehow be easier. I think that the stress of this of the pandemic of COVID is cumulative in nature, and I think, I do think that what Kim is bringing up on behalf of the teachers is something that really does need time to think about where we are at now, the pros and cons of it.
Just a quick response, if I could, Lynn, on that. Because that relates to a negotiated agreement with the WEA, it would have to be discussed in executive session as opposed to in public.
Thank you. Maria, you were next.
Thank you, Lynn. No, I was just gonna thank Jay for his suggestion about incorporating the nursing staff into the delegation of the COVID mitigation, in any way, because I think they also, know the students, especially the students that have certain health needs, and they certainly are in communication with the families already. So that might be an easy move to continue to delegate. So thank you, Jay, for that.
Thanks, Maria. Jeff, go ahead.
Yes, I just like to back up what Aaron was mentioning. I do think something has to give in this equation, but I do have concerns with removing the virtual option. I know it has to be discussed in executive session while our children are still quarantining. So we have healthy children at home. I understand a sick day is a sick day, but until quarantine goes away, I don't think healthy children should be stopped from learning. So if we could somehow remove the quarantine requirement, I would be all for removing the remote option.
Jay, did you raise your hand again?
I did, but we'll go, this is something that we can discuss in executive session, I think.
Okay. Is Sarah Beth somewhere, and does she have any comments? Hi,
Yes.
Sarah Beth. Anything?
Oh my gosh. Sorry to, no, I mean, I agree also with Jeff though. Like, we have to keep that virtual option we have to be teaching those kids too. So
I agree with Jeff as well.
Thank you, Mike. I do too. Yeah. All right. Any other board comments or questions for Dr. Budd on the safe return? I feel like we've been safely returning forever. But thank you for that, Jonathan.
Thank you, everyone.
Lots of information. All right, we're moving on to the report of the Ad Hoc Student Culture and Community Committee. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Budd, but I want to acknowledge Dr. Strambler for his amazing leadership on the ad hoc student culture and community committee, and thank him for his thoughtfulness and his persistence in meeting with this committee and addressing these issues. So, Dr. Budd.
Sure, and Lynn, can you see this one on your screen?
I can, yes.
This is a fluid presentation, everybody, and again, Lynn's leadership as well, but Mike's leadership as committee chair, actually, and this committee precedes me. And I actually, from the knowledge I have, am not positive there would even be the ad hoc student culture and community committee, particularly with the way it's advanced, without Dr. Strambler's leadership. And when we had our last committee meeting a few weeks ago, every single member of the committee said that. So thank you very much, Mike, on behalf of the staff. The first couple of slides here view the history of this committee. And it used to be called the Ad Hoc Safety Committee with a slightly different charge, as you see there in the first bullet. And the committee met 3 times and I think had a great deal of momentum, and Dr. Freiberg from the State Department came, but then a pandemic happened and the superintendent at the time transitioned. And so there was just a pause. So then in September, this board authorized a successor ad hoc committee with that goal that you see there. And since September, we've had monthly meetings. 6 meetings, as a matter of fact, and tonight's presentation highlights 6 main themes. I give credit, these are members of our current committee. There were people who were on the prior committee, but we just thought for clarity we would point out those who have contributed to this work. I'm positive these 6 themes are of interest to the board. And in a minute, my colleagues, Ms. Sherman and Ms. Kiesel, will speak to them. But as we've talked about how to make this culture here at Beecher Road School as positive as it can be for every single student, we ended up talking about 6 main themes. The first 2 are about building positive student culture in different ways, one through professional learning, another through student activities. But then that's not sufficient. We have students with mental health needs, students who get referred for disciplinary issues or even for bullying or harassment, and ultimately a safe school climate committee that has been reinvigorated the past few months to take all of this work forward. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Ms. Sherman, who's capably led Beecher Road School for at least 2 years as principal and is in the best position to talk about professional learning related to positive school culture.
Always so happy to talk about all the ones.
It's really hard to
Lisa.
hear you, Lisa.
Sorry.
Rookie mistake, forgot to unmute. So sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. So I started by saying that it is always a pleasure to talk about this topic and to highlight the work that our teachers and staff do every single day on supporting our students and building positive school culture. And as you have heard me discuss before, our responsive classroom philosophy continues to lead and guide us in this area. It is a philosophy that we hold near and dear to our hearts, and we continue to implement on a regular basis across our classrooms in different ways. And tied into that very beautifully, actually, is that third bullet there, that there is some book studies happening with our new teachers. And with the support of Ms. Shepard and Mr. De Palma, they are working with some of the new teachers on reading these 2 books that are responsive classroom books, but really for the upper grades, because we do have so many new teachers in the upper grades. So it's a way to apply some of our responsive classroom work and philosophies to some of our upper grade, middle school, intermediate students.
As you also know, we have also implemented some Choose Love lessons. The team leaders and I have had an opportunity to touch base and reflect on the work that has happened thus far and the work that will continue in this area. And the feedback that I've really received from them thus far is that the Choose Love ties in very, very beautifully with the work that we do as a responsive classroom community. So that's some of the work that we've done. And then this slide I'm really excited about because, as you know, we do like to engage in some fun school-wide activities. And Student Council reached out recently because they are very excited to launch the Spirit Days that they have every year for us. And they did also a fall door decorating, and I know that they're planning on more Student Council events that are COVID friendly in the future. Whole school, we've done a number of activities. We have some shared read-alouds that have happened. Dr. Budd has shared a read-aloud. I've shared a few. A lot of times those read-alouds have something tied into it. For example, one month, I read a book around gratitude, and then there was a gratitude jar that was shared with the community that anybody got to contribute to. And it was really, really powerful, all of the many, many things that students said that they were grateful for. We did have a virtual Veterans Day assembly. Many of you already know that. More recently, we had a Cozy Up with a Good Book Day where all of our students were given an extended period of time to just sit and read. We invited them to bring in snuggly friends and blankets and pillows, and all of our teachers were encouraged to read with their kids. And it was really a way to not only build reading stamina, but just come together as a community and celebrate a love of reading. We do have morning announcements. If you have a child currently at Beecher, feel free to ask them about the latest joke. The best part about that is that students come up to me in the hallway all the time now and share jokes with me, and they are passing me notes and writing them on Post-its and getting emails from their teachers with jokes that they want to share. So that's a really fun way that we all are enjoying our morning announcements. And most recently, also, we have our Hoot the Owl. He is actually flying from classroom to classroom. Don't worry, he's a stuffed animal owl, not a real one. And he visits the classrooms looking for acts of kindness, which usually also get shared on the morning announcements. And of course, our Spirit Days continue monthly.
Jonathan, we can't hear you.
Rookie mistake too. Ms. Kiesel is in charge of our wellness team, those who support special student needs, and she also has key roles related to bullying and harassment that we'll get to. But first, addressing students' mental health needs. Cheryl.
Thank you. I'm happy to speak about this evening. So we have found that this is an area of need based on the pandemic. The current mental health needs of students, the area that we're really seeing is our youngest students, pre-K, kindergarten, and we did receive some grant funding, and our priority has been to have some additional time with our school psychologists and social workers getting into those classes, doing some social emotional learning lessons to really address those mental health needs. It's not to say that it's not being addressed in the other grades, but that's the area that we really saw the impact of COVID-19.
Before Lisa speaks about this next slide, I want to say that one of the themes of this ad hoc committee was, of course, sometimes students need intervention beyond the classroom teacher in terms of their behavior and conduct. And without being critical in any way, there was a need to be better at collecting data related to this. And I think a very permanent outcome of this committee that will pay significant dividends is the process put in place related to this. You're going to see process come up on many of the next few slides. So Lisa will speak to this slide because it is about student disciplinary referrals.
Thank you. Yes. So this committee, actually, one of the conversations that we had as a committee was the fact that we had bus incident report forms that were coming into us, but we didn't always have a clear and concise way to collect data around in in-school disciplinary referrals. We had our own methodologies that were not always the easiest to track. So we did implement in November a Google form where any student who is sent to the office is, the teacher is required to complete a Google form, or we complete the Google form on behalf of the teacher if they are unable to. And what we've noticed is some trends. You'll see the data up there, but some of the trends that we observed as we reflected back on some of the data that we've completed so far is the significant areas are around non-compliance with stated expectations. So for example, a teacher will say, you know, it's time to line up for recess, and a student refuses repeatedly. It's never just, you know, a one-time refusal. It's usually a repeated refusal. So that is one of the trends that we noticed. We also noticed that physical reactions happen where students get frustrated. Somebody called them a name, or somebody looked at them funny, or somebody said something that wasn't very kind to them. And, you know, as kids will sometimes do, they'll get into a verbal back and forth, and it will sometimes result in a physical reaction. So those were some of the major issues. The bus disciplinary referrals do come to us directly from the bus drivers, and you'll see the data there, and very similar issues. On the bus, as you know, there is a driver, and the students are assigned seats for contact tracing purposes. So it is a lot of the same behaviors that we are noticing on non-compliance. The bus driver might direct a student to pull their mask up, or the bus driver might direct a student to stay seated. And if that is a repeated expectation and it is not followed, then we would get a bus referral. And the same thing where students might get upset on the bus about something and sometimes react with a physical reaction, sometimes just react with loud voices or very unkind words, and then those would get referred to us as well.
I would gather board members may have questions, but to look first at a couple of more themes, we're going to talk about occasionally student behavior moves into the categories of actually bullying, which is defined by statute, or harassment related to protected classes. Ms. Kiesel has an important role in both, and so I'll turn this back over to her.
Thank you. So most recently at the December Board of Education meeting, there were revisions that were made to the Board of Ed policy for bullying, which was needed to be updated. And because of that, we had an update with our faculty reviewing the changes because there was a change in the definition. So it was very important to get together with the staff for them to understand what those changes are. Including in that we made revisions to the web pages on both the Safe School Climate as well as non-discrimination. And as you can see, we have had some investigations that have gone on this year. 3 of them have been completed, and 1 of those was verified, and 2 of them are currently in process. So I can't speak to how that'll turn out, but it does take some time in the investigations.
Finally, a obligation of the district affirmatively by statute, and of course it's a very good practice, is to have a Safe School Climate Committee. As principal of the school, Ms. Sherman has lead responsibility for that committee and has revived it recently and is going to speak to that on the next slide.
Yes, we do have a Safe School Climate Committee here at Beecher, and it has recently been revived after a little hiatus from COVID. And we did have a few meetings. We have a third one coming up soon. And we started by reviewing the BOE policy and also reviewing the specific language within that and the work of the committee based on that Board of Ed policy. After we reviewed that policy and discussed some of the conversations that were had at this committee, actually, this Safe School Climate Committee was the one that helped to create the Google form, and they reviewed it and for accuracy and gave suggestions for how to make improvements, and they are ongoing reviewing the data off of this Google form. And also the staff only, per the policy, review the bullying incidents that we get. And the purpose of that, and they review it anonymously, I should mention, all identifying information is retracted. but the purpose of that is for the staff of the school only to identify any trends or themes and think through ways that we can support both the students and the teachers in ongoing issues that are arising in case we are noticing any trends or themes. So that is the work that we are doing and that we will continue to do ongoing. And it is a really nice opportunity for us to come together. There are both parent members and staff and teacher members on that, as well as myself and Mr. Sapia. And it is a nice opportunity for us to have conversations around student climate and culture at Beecher, behaviors, and to review a lot of the data and the information we get around behavior referrals.
So I think it's possible, Lynn, that either you or Mike may want to make comments as well. I know on our part, we'd be happy to answer questions that the board might have, but potentially you and Mike, who have been on this committee longer than I have, also have comments.
I do have some comments, but I'm going to defer to our, the wonderful chair of our committee for comments first. So Mike, I'll call on you.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank you, Jonathan, for those wonderful comments you made about me chairing the committee prior to your presentation. I was happy to do it, and honored that you all put your trust in me to do that. But I really want to thank you all because you all are the ones who are on the ground. I'm speaking of the administrators and the teachers who are engaged in this work every day. And I know it was no small commitment to give an hour of your time and all of the time required before that to prepare for these meetings and respond to requests. I know that's no small task, especially during a pandemic. So I want to acknowledge that I know how challenging this was for you all and appreciate how seriously you all took your roles. As Jonathan mentioned, this committee started in response to some concerning but relatively normal kinds of concerns that were expressed by teachers and family members about an uptick in disciplinary problems in classrooms in the school at large. So we were convened as a way of strategizing around how to address some of those concerns. Again, these were concerning, but within the realm of kind of normal things that schools need to consider. None of us had prepared for or considered the possibility of needing to respond to our charge in the context of a pandemic when we first started. So we shifted to that. And again, I'm really appreciative of all the other folks on the committee for making that pivot and sticking with our charge and trying to re-envision what that would look like with in this new world we found ourselves in. So again, thank you to all of you. I think that we've put in place some things that I think will endure over time. We ended with you ended that presentation talking about the Safe School Committee, the Safe School Climate Committee. They're going to be the ones that carry this work forward, and I feel very comfortable and encouraged by them playing that role. And also want to acknowledge the work and the honesty that went in acknowledging some of the challenges and limitations we had at the school around data collection on disciplinary incidents. I appreciate the committee being honest and acknowledging that and offering some solutions for addressing it and putting that in place in a way that is sustainable beyond the term of this committee. So thank you all.
Thanks, Mike. I want to echo Mike's comments about the work of the teachers and the administration on this committee. I am on a regular basis amazed at your commitment to this school district and to the kids who are in this school district and how seriously you take your work. So I too thank you for that. I've been on many committees, both in this school, on the board, and outside of the school. And I have seen how committees function oftentimes. And they work and they meet and they talk and nothing is accomplished. The one thing I think that is really needs to be pointed out here was this committee worked hard, talked a lot, collected a lot of information, and then we saw real action. We saw plans, procedures, even policy, board policy, changing because of the work of this committee. And so as a member of the committee, I felt that it was so uplifting to not have spent a lot of time and not in the end, really not accomplish what we wanted to accomplish. So I think we're on the right track. And as Mike pointed out, I think we have some good procedures and plans in place to carry us forward. And so I thank all the committee members for that work. Erin, do you have anything you would like to add? Okay, David?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks to the whole team. I want to just start with a meta reflection, which is I have to express my disappointment that we did not have materials further in advance of the meeting. It's really difficult as a board to be able to come prepared for a meeting when we don't have the things in advance. And so I understand that there's a lot of chaos in the world, but it's really hard for us to be able to have the dialogue we want to have and to be able to focus without having the materials that we need. In this space, I'm really curious. We've now spoken for a very long time about getting a survey out to families about their experience relating to climate in the school. We've heard numerous complaints about very significant issues that have been traumatizing, not just to the individuals involved, but to other people who have been aware of them and who report vicarious trauma and a feeling of being unsafe in the school. And so we've talked about this for months and months and months and months. And I'd like to know where we stand on getting a survey out to our community to understand what is actually going on.
Yes, this will be a little bit covered in the next presentation, tonight, but in relation to issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion, there is a group working on that survey. It's a subgroup of the Community and Diversity Committee. They actually have a meeting later this week, and we anticipate a survey going out because this board will hear the results, is scheduled to hear the results of it at its February meeting.
Are you all set, David, or anything else?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Jeff?
Just a thank you. Great leadership on that committee. Great committee members. The everlasting action items taken from that is extraordinarily impressive. So nice work to the committee.
Thank you. Maria?
Thank you to everyone on the committee and for the positive changes that have come out of the work of the committee. I also just had a question about the changes being communicated to the community themselves, either in the form of a handbook or in the form of some updates so that they are aware of where to find information and where to find the process if they need to contact your administrator if their child has been involved in an incident.
I'll let Lisa speak to it in a minute, Maria, in terms of her communication from the principal's perspective. From the district level, we've updated the web pages related to both safe school climate and to non-discrimination. And on safe school climate, we've also backed up from that and talked about other aspects such as discipline at Beecher and concerns that you might have in that regard. But Lisa, from the principal's perspective to families, I think will be able to speak to that best.
I think in the past, parents have gone to the handbook for looking up policy and procedure, and that's great. I think that they were updated in other areas, but maybe we need to communicate that that's where the updates are, as opposed to people looking for a certain document that may not be there. But let them know the information is there, it's just in a different form. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Maria. I was just gonna say that I know the handbook on our website, a parent actually recently brought it to my attention. It's one of those things that slipped this year as we were launching a new year, but I know the handbook on our website is not the most updated one. So that is something that I have to remedy. A parent literally a couple days ago mentioned that to me. So that is something I do have to remedy. But as Dr. Budd just said, it is placed in other sections of our website.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Maria. Jay, anything? Nope. Sarah Beth?
I'm here with Brooke, and we both just agree the same sentiment that it's a great job on the committee.
Thank you, Sarah Beth. So Brooke, you have nothing else? I assume not. Okay, thank you. Anything else from board members before I move on? I think we got to everybody. Wonderful. Thank you again, Dr. Budd, Lisa, Cheryl, Mike. Thank you all. Mid-year progress update on district and school goals. Dr. Budd.
Lisa and Cheryl and I were before you in September. It seems like a long time ago in some ways, but not a long time ago in others. And we presented the district and school goals to you for this year. And speaking of those increased COVID cases, we couldn't have predicted that, and we didn't predict it back in the third week of September, right? But we had said at that time that we had the obligation to report to you mid-year on these goals, and obviously we'll report at the end of the year. So let me just share my screen one more time, please. Maria, you're on my screen. Can you see that large enough? Okay. So the structure, this will follow the same order as before. We presented 12 goals to you before. We're just about halfway through the school year, and so this is an apt time to speak about them. Cheryl and I will take the district goals, and Lisa and Cheryl have some shared responsibility for the school-based goals. When we speak about the district goal 1, which is the strategic planning process, you heard from the strategic planning consultant at the October meeting. Based on her suggestion, it was determined to hold off, as many districts have on things like this, until after the peak, whatever that is, of the pandemic. So this is scheduled to begin in February and conclude in June, with a full presentation to the board at that time. And I should say on each of these, there'll be a division into current evidence of attainment, where it exists, and planned evidence of attainment, where we, as an administrative team, plan for the spring. Second district goal is what we mentioned before, relates to the process of assessing climate related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And one of the goals of the district's Community and Diversity Committee is developing a survey. We first, as the second bullet mentions there, we first thought about dovetailing with a similar survey being implemented by the town through its ad hoc committee on diversity and inclusion, but they're going to really very little focus on the school. And it seems like it would be best to do not only our own, but at a different time. So as I mentioned earlier, we have a group meeting later this week with then implementation with a report to the board. It's the February the presentation for the February meeting of the board to then plan next steps. Third district goal relates to human resources, and this one we would say has been attained at this point. We have expanded through our office here the onboarding and hiring documentation to encompass the personnel related to extended day, and we've also implemented software to reduce paper forms for leave requests, absentee requests, et cetera, of staff. That increases our administrative and clerical efficiency, and it also gives much speedier response on leave requests. Fourth goal was related to capital planning. Now, as you know from the December meeting, the capital plan was presented to you. It's been presented to the town. Here you see one element that's very important in purple, and purple means that it's an important thing that we really didn't anticipate at the beginning of the year. And in this case, the capital plan committee exposed that there are some critical needs at Beecher that need to be accomplished right now from a facilities perspective. And Mr. Hughes, Dr. Dyer chaired that committee, and the Jace there, as this board has talked about, kind of running the HVAC of the building, was a critical need, and I'm happy to say that funds were allocated a few weeks ago for an updated Jace. And you see that the first bullet under planned evidence of attainment, we've seen other critical facilities elements that must be met immediately. For example, an oil tank removal or removal of a outdated oil tank in the front of Beecher. But we will in the spring see how the town responds to our capital plan, and then I anticipate we will continue to respond successfully to their feedback. The fifth goal is one related to special services in particular. So I'm going to mute and let Cheryl speak a little more to this one.
Thank you. So on the fifth goal, this has to do with special services, and we implemented the DALLS assessment. Basically, it gives us access to 40 online assessments. And with that, you can also get the hard copy assessments as part of that for free. And it's great because we're able to really see which one is most appropriate for a student. One student who click, 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 click on an iPad, that is not going to be the assessment that you use. Whereas other students, they might respond better when they're using the digital version. And then we're also phasing in multidisciplinary reports for families because there's so much information that comes through on a comprehensive initial evaluation. And so this is something we are phasing in right now, where it's one report that has all the information embedded into one. So it's hopefully not as overwhelming for families. So that's something we're doing. It's a process that we're doing, and we're learning, as we're going along, especially with the assessments, and phasing it in as we go.
The final district goal related to professional development for the Board of Education. And all board members have participated in professional development through CABE and the FOI Commission offered to the entire board, but many, perhaps almost all members of the board have participated in some specific professional development related to particular goal areas. We'll continue that kind of work. It's so important. And as we note here at the bottom, one particular area of focus will be professional development for the board linked to teacher negotiations. With that, I will turn to the school-based goals, and Cheryl has the first one here, so I will mute again and turn to her.
Okay, as you can see we just spoke about the ad hoc committee that we had. Ooh.
Sorry.
Okay. I'm not seeing it yet. Perfect. Now we can see it. Okay, so the ongoing work of the ad hoc student culture community committee that we just spoke about. Social emotional learning tied to teacher evaluation as a program goal option. The teachers could select that, and many did choose that as their option. And then, as I spoke about earlier, the additional time for the psychologist and social worker to be addressing social emotional needs in pre-K and kindergarten. That's definitely something that has been started in January. And then we want the students to feel that they have people that understand them, that they can connect with. And so that would be a way that we'd have planned evidence of that attainment.
Thank you. So the next couple of school goals I will be chatting about, and this very first one is around literacy. So I want to start by mentioning that, as has been our practice, our literacy specialist, Monique McDonald, Teresa Nikuzi, Jen Nickel, and Ton Huntington have all been working regularly with grade level PLCs to support them in their curriculum and assessment work. They also, when they are able, provide professional development directly to new teachers, with most recent one that we've done, and we have not done as much as these as we would hope, but we did have some release time for some of our sixth grade teachers to work with Jen Nickel, and they had some specific work around morphology. We have a phenomenal team of our literacy and speech and language and special education teachers working together on the science of reading and dyslexia instruction. And they're having amazing conversations and delving into research and reading articles and talking about shared instructional practices so that there is consistency, and then bringing that work to some of the primary grade levels to support their instruction and their own learning as they grow, as we all grow in this area. And then I have to mention in purple, as Dr. Budd said earlier, that just today, actually, our ELL teacher, Tom Huntington, did a really wonderful professional development on multilingual learners. And not only did she provide us with some amazing statistics that were really incredibly informative, she also shared some wonderful resources and some strategies for supporting some of the multilingual learners in our school, which was really fabulous and really well received by the faculty. I want to talk about too really quickly that as I walk through the building, as I have opportunities to pop into classrooms and complete informal observations and formal observations, I've seen evidence of this work in action. I was just in a kindergarten classroom and in a first grade classroom where they were actually implementing the phonics work that they have been learning and working on with our literacy specialists. I got to see our friends chopping their words up and then sliding them together to form a new word. I got to see writing workshop happening in a first grade classroom recently where they were really learning and looking closely at endings by reviewing some mentor texts and listening to a shared writing model that the teacher had completed. In fourth grade, I have to talk about math because everybody here knows how much I love math. I was in a fourth grade classroom recently, and I know it's not literacy, but I have to just mention math. They were breaking apart numbers in fourth grade and learning how to multiply multi-digit numbers by really focusing on place value and breaking the numbers apart by place value. The teacher was doing an amazing job modeling her thinking through that process, asking students to talk through and explain how they were solving this work. It was really powerful. And then it's always fun too when I see really fun things happening. Like, I was in a third grade classroom very briefly because it was very dark in there and I was very confused about what was going on. And I walked in and I saw my third grade friends doing some flashlight reading, and they all had their little individual flashlights. And something about reading a book with a flashlight makes it just a little bit better. So there's been some really amazing work happening, and that's just, the last week maybe that I've seen what I just described. So that's some of what I wanted to share around literacy and a little bit of math instruction. School goal 3, thank you. So this is around culturally responsive teaching and learning. Now, we all know that this is an area that we have been focusing on for a few years, and even more so this year. We have had some formal professional development at the beginning of the year, and again, we had some more in November. I'll tell you that the feedback that we received from the November PD was really, really powerful and positive. We heard a lot of teachers talk about how we put the teachers into mixed professional learning groups. So they had the opportunity to really connect and discuss culturally responsive teaching across different grade levels and different specialty areas. And some of the feedback that we received was it was really powerful and helpful, and they really enjoyed that opportunity to connect with colleagues across the school. And I will also say that some of the other feedback we received from our teachers was that they would really love ongoing work and conversations in culturally responsive teaching and learning and DEI. So I love that. I love when our teachers say, this was great, we want even more. I think that's so amazing. And it just speaks to the willingness of our teachers to recognize this as an area that we are all continuing to grow and learn in, and that we all have work to do as a school community. And I really appreciated that they were able to say, we want to have more conversations. We'd love to have an outside presenter. We would love to have some feedback and some guidance on how to tackle conversations in our classroom. So I appreciated the staff providing us with that feedback. It is work that we are going to continue to do for the rest of the year and moving forward, because it is powerful and necessary and ongoing. On the fourth goal, technology, we all know that we're living in a digital world, even when we forget to unmute ourselves to talk after being on Zoom meetings for a very long time. I'm talking about myself, Jonathan, not you. That was me. I have to give a big shout out to our technology and library department, especially because they have been supporting staff and teachers and parents and students and administrators in all of our technology needs. We have had a few formal professional development days. You'll notice those listed on this slide here. The November one was actually a choice board, which is something that we learned about as a faculty in the past, and we implemented in our November PD. So it allowed the teachers the opportunities in their PLCs to engage in their own choice board around technology and literacy instruction. So there was a series of 9 options, everything from being a Google Slides power user to watching some Jason Reynolds videos. If you don't know the author Jason Reynolds, you must check him out. He's amazing. I wish I could hang out and have some coffee with him. He is phenomenal. So they got to watch some Jason Reynolds videos around writing. It was all around writing topics. There was a Flipgrid option. There was learning around how to create their own choice board. So in mixed PLCs, they got to engage in that technology work. And then I would be remiss if I didn't mention, I started by mentioning our library tech team, but I have to talk about the Makerspace that is currently occurring in the library and technology lab. That space has been transformed this year. It is an amazing space. It is inviting and warm and filled with all of the wonderful things that you want to see in a library, including students engaging in a lot of different Makerspace activities. So we have students working on GarageBand. We have students in breakout rooms working on breakout rooms. We have students doing origami. We have students making cat blankets that they're donating to the Woodbridge Animal Shelter. We have students building and creating. I walked into the library one day and there was this huge wooden structure made out of Keva blocks, and it was amazing because they were talking. They were actually trying to build a bridge, and it was engineering in real life. It was amazing. The kids were having this really great conversation about the structure of the blocks and the way that some of them at the bottom were not supporting the top part and what they had to do. And I wish I could have recorded the conversation. And the WBRS News is back with Rachel, who is leading it. She's one of our technology teachers. So she is supporting our students in getting that up and running. And I know that the students are doing a lot of the work, and that's happening through the Makerspace area as well. And then Jeannie Tarliglio has the green screen up and running, and she's having a lot of fun with that. So I really have to give a big shout out to our library tech team, who are doing an amazing job in that area. So school goal 5, I was going to say, I'm just going to start talking. School goal 5 is around database decision making and improved instructional practices. Now, this happens a lot at our PLC levels, again, with the support of our curriculum leaders in both math, science, and language arts, and also through our SRBI process, which is ongoing. And we're continuing to tackle our SERBI intervention process. So that is the process by which we support our students who might need some additional help. We also have regular team leader meetings. Those happen monthly, and that's an opportunity to check in on curriculum at the grade levels and to check in on some of our school-wide goals that I'm talking about right now. So that was where I had the opportunity to talk to the team leaders about Choose Love. We've talked about our two-way communication, which is coming up next. And we've talked about ongoing curriculum support and needs in those team leader meetings. And communication with family. I kind of hinted at this in my last page, but that is something that we have revisited as a faculty at various faculty meetings. We also have, like I said, at team leader meetings, we've had conversations about how we can share ways that we can improve our two-way communication as teachers. We've had the opportunities to really bounce ideas off one another, both as a PLC and as mixed PLCs and as a team leader group. And we've checked in as team leaders and talked about how this work is going and how we can almost differentiate this work. We've talked about how not only do we have that, is it important that we communicate out the work of the grade level or the work of the teacher, but also that we include opportunities for parents to communicate with us in different formats, and also that we individualize some of our communication for our students. And our teachers do such a great job at that. They send emails and make phone calls, and it's really a matter of reflecting on those practices and thinking about how can we do this even better.
Then I'll stop sharing at that point. It comes to the end of our quick review of those 12. And if you'd like, we'd be happy to answer questions.
Thank you to all of you for an informative presentation. I'm going to begin with, I have too many papers here. That's my problem. Erin, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I mean, thank you a lot. I'm really looking forward to continuing. I think my question / comment is I'm noting how many of those things that you spoke about tie into our budget that we're working on. Namely, I'm thinking, there was a lot mentioned about the mental health needs of kids. There was some mentioning of the importance of STEM and investing in that, and that being the future. And there was a lot about professional development. And I am curious, I greatly appreciate all that you guys have done in terms of the professional development that you guys have been able to provide each other internally. But I'd love to get a little bit of perspective of, the impact that the resource restrictions have had on being able to bring in people from outside for professional development, especially since, the world has changed so much since 2019 when we kind of were last able to really do that. And I'm just curious, as you look towards kind of the needs of the school and our need to kind of continue to grow and expand in terms of responsive classroom and in terms of, DEI, but also in terms of technology. What have we kind of tapped out our internal resources? What is our ability? What are our needs in terms of beefing back up that professional development, especially in terms of ability to bring in outside individuals to inform our work?
Can never exhaust the resources of our staff, Ms. Williamson, but you're correct. I mean, your premise is correct that there comes a point where, especially in a smaller district like Woodbridge with about 80 teachers, at some point, outside expertise is really necessary. I would say this is a little bit of a hard time to answer this question because many things have been restricted because of COVID. external conferences all over the United States have been paused. Speakers who normally would visit a school really are not doing that. Things that would have cost money 1 year ago are free now, recognizing the pandemic. I'm going to ask Lisa to speak since she's been here longer about any changes she's noticed over the long term. But I know that one of our goals for Finance Committee in February is to present from the professional development budget. What does that money actually pay for? Why is that particular figure there? And for example, before I turn it over to Lisa, I'll say just a couple of weeks ago, Lisa and I and Mr. DePalma from the Ad Hoc Student Culture and Community Committee met with a representative from Responsive Classroom to talk about the how we could go back to training all of our teachers, new teachers who have never been trained, and experienced teachers who need a refresher, and the cost of that and the structure of that. So we have real defined points on that, and I know that'll come up at Finance Committee, but Lisa has a good perspective over the long haul that I think would help on this too.
I think that actually Jonathan hit the nail on the head when he talked about the fact that it is more challenging, obviously, to get outside presenters in, and equally challenging to send staff to professional development that we have been able to in the past. So a lot of things did go virtual. For example, I know that one of the trainings that we often provide our new teachers is to send them to Teachers College, Columbia University, and that has been a challenge with the onset of COVID, and that is something that we have talked about with our literacy specialist, and Dr. Budd and I have had that conversation. The same with Responsive Classroom. In years past, we have been able to provide responsive classroom training to our new teachers and our interns, and that has been a challenge the last 2 summers or so because of the impact of COVID and budgetary implications, of course, as well. So there has definitely been a little bit of a decline of sending people out to professional development, just again because of the COVID world that we are living in. I will say that, to Dr. Budd's point, that there is some professional development being offered free. What's coming to mind immediately is Greg Tang. He has been offering some opportunities for students to actually participate in some math lessons. And it serves as, I actually spoke with a 3rd grade teacher who had engaged in that, and many of our teachers did, but I just happened to see her right after it had ended. And Greg Tang is a mathematician who really speaks about number flexibility. And he had done a virtual lesson for 3rd grade students in this case, and the teacher, I saw her afterwards and she was so excited. She said I was taking notes on everything that he was saying. So it ended up being almost an embedded professional development for her, but also a way to engage the students in a math lesson. So as those opportunities come up, there have been some Flipgrid Live events that I know that I have found and I have shared out with teachers that have been free, and I've given the teachers the links to those as I come across them. So we're trying to continue to engage and grow and learn, while also definitely being limited by COVID, and we are definitely not doing some of the things that we have done in years past.
Thanks, Lisa. David, anything?
Lynn, Cheryl was asking if she could say something on that too. Is that possible?
Absolutely. And then we'll go to you, David.
Thank you. So although there were some things that we aren't able to do in the world of special education, we've had the state offering some training on specific reading approaches, and they might run $1,000 for multi-day training. And you have to sign up very quickly. I had emails over the holiday break and winter break saying, there's an opening, can I sign up? So we have had opportunities that do come up, and some people have been able to sign up for, they're doing it virtually instead of going to that. So some things are negative, that we're losing things, but there are some things that we did gain because of COVID and getting the state to provide that training.
Thanks, Lisa. David?
No, thank you. This is a lot of information. I'm going to need to take some time to digest.
Thank you. Jeff?
Thank you, Cheryl and Lisa. Excellent job as always. I'm glad mental health is forefront. Please keep that going.
Maria?
Thank you to everyone for their presentation. And I agree with David. There is a lot of information, and I will probably have more thoughts and questions as I go through all of it. But one thing that stood out for one of the district goals for the strategic planning that begins in February, will we be continuing to go with the consultant that gave us a presentation? I believe that was October meeting. Is that
Yes,
how we're going to
yes,
proceed with that?
we contracted with her, Maria, yes.
Anything else, Maria?
No, that's it for the moment. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you. Jay?
Thank you, everyone. I think that's an excellent presentation, Lisa, Cheryl, and Jonathan. I think Erin has a very important point here. We've got to be careful in terms of reinvestment into the teachers. This comes through professional training. I know when I look at the budgets just recently, I'm going to go back to budget for a second. We've had very, very small budgets on development, primarily because we've been in COVID. So we've got to understand that our needs are going to increase. That's been a saving, but it's no longer going to be a saving. We've got to invest in that particular area. And I hope we've taken account of that in our 22-23 budget. I think Jonathan did check on that. But that's something we really need to pay attention to. The way I think about this is, we place our children in the schools, in the care of the teachers who advance knowledge, and that needs to be updated, that needs to be enhanced, that needs to be fine-tuned. And the way that's done is we can only go so far if we do it within the community. So we have to reach out and get all those available resources and ensure that our assets, the students and the teachers, are up to date in everything that they could be at. So I think it's very, very important that we continue to reinvest in that and not see that as a line item that can be dispensed with.
Thank you, Jay. Sarah Beth? Can you borrow someone's computer?
I agree with, it was a great presentation and I'm gonna look into it more. Thank you for the presentation.
Thanks, Sarah Beth. Brooke, anything?
Hi, Sarah. I agree with Jay. And then Lisa, I have a question. The school goal, primarily number 2, regarding the best practices for teaching. How is our staffing issues? How does that affect the ability for teachers to still train some of the other teachers? And like, how is that being disruptive, obviously, because of the staffing issues of having to cover other classrooms? How can we assist with that?
Yeah, thanks for asking, Brooke. I hinted at that a little bit, but our literacy and our math and our STEAM teachers are being used to cover classrooms quite a bit lately due to our staffing and COVID needs. So that is happening. So they are doing, we try very hard not to utilize them for classroom coverage, and however we do have to, so that obviously if they are in a classroom, then obviously they are not acting as a math, literacy, or STEAM specialist. So the reality is that when they're not in a classroom, they're doing their regular jobs. They're trying to reschedule meetings. We're trying to provide time for them at faculty meetings when we can. And they are supporting their intervention students in the midst of that. So they are working really quite hard and juggling their roles as a STEAM math and literacy specialist, and also as supporting our staff in their absences and supporting our students, because kids need teachers, right? So it's a challenge.
Okay, thank you.
Mike?
Thank you all for that presentation. I just wanted to reiterate some of a couple of the points that Jay and Erin had made about professional development. Teaching is a high skilled profession, and it's really important to keep their skill set and knowledge updated. And so I agree with points that were made about this not being an item that is but an item that is optional. It's essential.
Mike, we're having a little trouble hearing you, and I'm getting a spinning wheel for you. So could you try again?
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, much better. Thank you.
Okay. I was just agreeing with a couple of points made by Jay and Aaron about professional development. Teachers mentioned that teachers are a high skill profession and that their skill set and their knowledge needs to be current. And so I agree with the point that professional development should not be considered an optional line item in a budget or optional for any school. It's essential.
Thanks, Mike. And I concur. Professional development is key. I think having been a former teacher, I know how important it is to continually be a learner as an educator. So I think that that's a high priority for this board, and I fully support that. And Brooke, your question was my question, so I won't ask it again. But I do want to thank Jonathan and Lisa and Cheryl for this presentation. I have to agree with David that it's an awful lot of information for us to take in. And so we might have to, Jonathan, ask for an opportunity at next month's meeting if any board member has future questions after really having some time to process all this information, because there's a lot. So I'll put that forward to any board member who feels that they want to further discuss this at next month's board meeting, to either reach out to Jonathan or reach out to me. And we'll see that we'll put a little spot for it on the agenda for further discussion. So so thanks for that. Beecher Road School update. Mrs. Sherman.
Thank you. So with the holidays and then some of our snowstorms, I don't have too much to share with you. I wanted to just take a minute to highlight two quick things. The very first is our art department, and specifically I wanted to highlight our band. It is up and running, and it is a beautiful thing to hear sounds of music coming from the band room. Mr. Caldwell, our new band teacher, has been working very closely with the grade 6 and the grade 5 teachers to get band up and running again. And I know that our 5th grade band just started up and running recently, and the kids are very excited about their instruments and eager to bring them into school. I've seen lots of instruments, black cases, walking by the office as they unload off the bus and head down to band. So I just wanted to highlight that. And we did have 2 open house nights for parents for band, one in 6th grade and then one for 5th grade. So kudos to him. And another classroom that I walked into the other day was an art class, and the students were actually drawing. I feel like it was even more than drawing. It was beautiful. They were actually creating these pieces of fruit, and throughout the process of creating these pieces of fruit, they were learning about blending and shading and the impact of light on inanimate objects. And it was a really, really awesome lesson. So I have to give a quick shout out to the art department for a little while for all of that work that they are doing. And then, in keeping with what I just mentioned, I wanted to quickly share something personal. I have here a very old Nancy Drew book. I will tell you that when I was a student, this was one of my favorite series, and I have found some kindred spirits here at Beecher. There's a couple of kids here that all of these, the whole series is sitting in my office right now because like I said, I was a Nancy Drew fan, and I received a note from the students who are borrowing them. And if you'll allow me, I'm just going to read it because it absolutely highlights how amazing our kids are. It says, "Dear Mrs. Sherman, thank you so much for letting us borrow your books and for giving us some. I had some duplicates. We have been really enjoying these books. I really like Nancy Drew because she has lots of exciting adventures. Thank you for letting us use your office as a Nancy Drew library. So I just love the power of literature and the fact that we have some amazing kiddos who really love the old school Nancy Drew books, just like their principal does, and that we were able to connect on this, and we have lovely conversations about reading together as they pop in and out of my office. And that's just one example of many I could share about books and literature and the reading lives that our kids are leading here at Beecher. That's it.
Lisa, thank you so much for continuing on a daily basis to inspire and motivate and love the students at Beecher Road School like you do. It's just so evident in everything that you do. So thank you for that. I don't know if there's any board member who might have a question about Nancy Drew or anything else that Lisa's spoken about this evening.
If anybody else wants to borrow my Nancy Drew books, I have them.
I was just going to say that, Lisa, and I'm sure if anyone wanted to read Nancy Drew, Lisa will share with you too. So just give her a shout out. Thanks again, Lisa. We're up to PTO update. Joy, welcome.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Same to you.
I've been looking forward to giving you an update. I know we missed December's meeting, but to clue you in on all the things the PTO was able to squeeze in before the close of 2021. For our Thanksgiving food drive, Aaron Oleski chaired this year. And like the previous year, instead of collecting food, we asked our BRS families to make donations through our PayPal account to allow us to purchase Stop and Shop gift cards for families in need. A total of $2,600 was generously donated, which allowed us to buy Stop and Shop gift cards for 17 Beecher Road families in need. We had $656 come in after the November 23rd cutoff, and we gave that to the Town of Woodbridge Resident Assistance Fund, which is formerly the Woodbridge Food and Fuel. Also, due to successful fundraising efforts that we've had in 2019, 2020, and 2021, we're happy to report that we've recently funded the following. In technology, we purchased 50 document cameras for the school. These are used by students in the classroom for stronger student-centered learning and by teachers for the remote instruction of students in isolation or quarantine. We spent $5,119.51 on that. We also helped to fund this year's school-wide Scholastic News subscription, and that's for the whole school, and we gave $3,700 for that. We have Pto Mini Grants that were just fulfilled. For those of you who don't know, the PTO implemented the Pto Mini Grant program for teachers after our first successful Boosterthon fundraiser in 2019. The purpose of the PTO grant program is to provide funding to enrich and enhance the educational experiences of our students, support educators in their creative and innovative thinking, provide curriculum enrichment, and encourage a sense of community. The goal of the grant program is to benefit as many students as possible, and preference is given to projects that have a broad educational impact and have a long-lasting benefit to the school. Grants can be written for individual classrooms or subjects, as well as for entire grade levels. And we do prioritize grant applications that have a clear purpose, address a specific need of the Beecher Road School community, and have no other avenue of funding. So we're happy to report that we were able to support all 7 teacher grant proposals this year. All of the grants provide resources for our school community for years to come. For the kindergarten team, we were able to get flexible seating with tabletops. Teresa Nikuzi and her team, we were able to get story champs for reading composition for intervention and general education K through 4 and MAG 1 and 2. For the third grade team, we purchased recess equipment for more cooperative games and playing. And for the second grade team, nonfiction books for leveled libraries for their readers' workshops. And we got math manipulatives for grades 1 and 2. And the sixth grade team, we were able to get flexible seating for the entire sixth grade. The total amount of funding for this year's grant cycle was $10,000. These 7 grants totaled $4,776. So we will be asking for more grant proposals sometimes later this year to fulfill that $10,000. I'm also happy to report that after 2 years, we finally had an in-person Scholastic book fair that went on November 29th through December 3rd. And even though we were not able to have family night due to the ongoing COVID-related restrictions, we were able to have roughly 30 volunteers help us make it a huge success throughout the week. Many families set up e-wallets for their students to come shop the fair, and also donated a total of $2,500 to the school-wide e-wallet, which was created to purchase books for Beecher Road school libraries. Those generous contributions from our community in the e-wallet and through the use of Scholastic dollars we had earned in previous book fairs allowed us to purchase over 700 books for the Beecher Road school libraries. Our special education and reading teachers received new high-interest decodable book sets, which feature popular characters like the Avengers, Spider-Man, Disney princesses, and more. And our grade level teachers were gifted books to refresh their classroom libraries that augmented inclusiveness and diversity while meeting curriculum goals. And our librarians were thrilled to get the latest copies of hugely popular series and standalones. Also, for students in need, we provided $20 vouchers so they could purchase books at the fair as well. With the success of the book fair, we earned over $9,600 in the Scholastic dollars, which will allow us to purchase even more books for our school libraries and to pay for upcoming virtual author visits. We cannot thank all of our wonderful volunteers enough for all of their help. I also wanted to say that many of these parent volunteers had very young children and had moved to Woodbridge either right before the pandemic or during. And as such, this was their very first time inside the school volunteering. And I really can't describe how magical it was to see the students at every grade level and their excitement to come shop at the fair. It was a delicious taste of normalcy that we've been desperately craving. Still to come this year, we're now in the planning stages for recruiting new volunteers, having special events, possible grade level or parent socials, book swap week, spring Scholastic book fair, teacher and staff appreciation week, arts week 15, Quasi night with BCS, and of course, sixth grade graduation and our yearbook. Our next PTO meeting will be on Thursday, January 27th at 7 p.m. via Google Meet. And that's all I have, but thank you.
Joy, thank you. And thanks to the entire PTO for the incredible activities that you plan and for your generosity in supporting school programming and the kids here. It's always amazes me. So thanks.
Thank you, Lynn.
Board of Selectmen update, Ms. McCraven.
Well, good evening, everyone, and I'm really impressed to always hear that PTO update. I'm sorry I can't follow it up with as much abundance of good news, but it does recall those wonderful days of book fairs in the past there at the school. It's good to see that that's still happening. I just want to briefly address the board just to give you, to reiterate once again, the very strong support for education that I know you are aware of. As representatives on the Board of Education, I know you talk to parents every day. I know that parents are very strongly supportive of the school, and I want to assure everyone that the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance, as we look at budgets, we are also very strongly supportive of the school. I'm going to be looking forward to your discussion later in your agenda about potential adjustments to your operating budget proposal that's coming in. I said at the last meeting that, you know, while we want to be as supportive of school funding as we possibly can be, we're also trying to balance some other needs. Those needs are starting to come to light as those operating budget drafts are coming to us. So we're really going to be looking to partner with the school board, the superintendent, all the teachers, everybody at the school in order to make sure that we can be supportive of the teaching and learning, the students, and all the needs that you have there at the school. So again, looking forward to your discussion. Whatever you can do tonight, I know is going to be appreciated. It will be a good signal to the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance. But again, we're partners in all of this, and we're looking forward to working with you, receiving your formal budget presentation in just about a week's time now. So looking forward to that, and thank you all again for what you're doing there tonight. That's it from me.
Thank you, Sheila. Next on the agenda is our Finance Committee report. Dr. Daya is the chair of our Finance Committee. Jay?
Okay, hi Lynn, thank you so much. The Finance Committee met on Monday, the 11th of January at 4:34. There were really two items that were presented, and the two items are pretty important. Jonathan discussed two items at the meeting. He presented the operating budget, the current operating budget for fiscal year 21-22. And we also got some updates with respect to medical expenses and proposed revisions that Sheila just referred to for the 22-23 budget. So very quickly, the good news on the first front is that in the current year, the administration forecasts a deficit of 44,239. To put that into some context, if we look at the last full month, we were about $87,000 off that. We had a deficit of 131,000. So we've managed to take that deficit down from 131 to 44,239. Now, within that deficit, we also included the JACE, which Jonathan talked about. That came in at about 17,800 and something. I think Jeff could confirm the small digits, but it was 17,800 and change. And so that was included in there. So if we took that off, that would bring it down to about 27,000. So we're very, very close to target at this stage. Now, having said that, what were the key drivers? Again, they seem to be the same drivers again. We've had to add one additional section of staffing. We've had medical insurance benefits that have gone up by 22%. And purchased property services, fuel, electricity costs, as you've all probably noticed, these have gone up. There are some good news on that front. We noticed, Sarah Beth in particular on the board noticed that we weren't being charged the right rate in terms of electricity. So that's resulted in a significant current saving and also an adjustment to the budget for 22-23. Now, there were two items that we have to just be careful about. This budget deficit of 44,000 does not include the special ed needs that arose this month. They account for an additional 40,000. And the budget also excludes 30,000 for support staff that were needed during this period where staff were out. And so that doesn't include that. So that's going to have to be factored in as we go along. So again, the key things to notice here is that the medical expenses had stabilized this month, and it was expected. Richard Hoot and Jonathan both suggested they would stabilize going forward. And I mentioned the 25,000 adjustment that would be made to next year's budget. Jonathan also presented two very, very important items with respect to the fiscal 22-23 budget. Put it simply, that's the budget that we've asked for, a 13.5% increase. Well, what we're looking at is medical expenses here. We noticed that medical expenses are forecast to be up 22% for next year. I've asked around, this is not unusual. This is very, very normal. At 20% plus It's very, very normal, unless you're in a state-sponsored plan, where they're usually single digits because the plans are much larger. So if we think about this, medical expenses today represent about 17.5% of our budget. If I just go back 2 or 3 years, they were representing about 14.5% of the budget. So you've seen a 3% increase just because of this increase in medical expenses. And so we really need to address this. And Jonathan had the mandate with Richard to go out and see if they could do some work on this, to try and find alternative plans, to look at ways in which we could lower the expense. Well, I believe Jonathan and Richard were in consultation with the town, and they've gone and looked at preliminary quotes that suggest the district could save around $500,000 if we were able to move to a different plan. Now, at this point, I should mention a few caveats. I think the first one that I think I'm going to ask of Jonathan in a second is these aren't bonded quotes. So in essence, these aren't hard and fast. These are just those quotes that do not look at our insurance pool, that don't have underwriters examine our pool. And last but not least, these are ballpark estimates to begin with. They could go down significantly. And one thing I would think about is our pool of teachers. Our pool of teachers may not be similar to the pool that the insurers are quoting or giving you these broad brush ballpark numbers. As a result of these savings or potential savings and the savings in electricity, Jonathan also proposed a budget revision, which he again will present. And so I don't think I really need to go into detail on that. So there were a few questions asked. The questions were about the special ed budgets. The questions were about the importance of providing a medical package that met the requirements that was currently being offered. And the next and last part, and one part I think I'm going to talk about later when Jonathan presents this, is moving to a revised plan. What are the losses? What are the gains? I'd like to really sort of try to get a better handle on what are the benefits in terms of, I can see the financial benefits potential, but are there any losses for the town if we move out of the town pool? There's a lot of questions here that I think we need to look at. So I still would recommend that Jonathan and Richard continue to look into these and we continually explore these. But at the moment, I say, let's take this with a pinch of salt. This is a great, great start, but I think it needs still some fleshing out. If you have any questions.
I don't see any board member questions. So, Jay, is it okay if we move on to Jonathan and Dick's report on the investigation of medical insurance options? Perfect. Okay, Jonathan, you're on. Jonathan, if you're speaking.
Yes, I know. Sorry. I don't have anyone here to help me on the other end of the table, but Richard is a few feet over to my right, so he'll nudge me or gesture if I'm saying anything off. But like the ad hoc presentation we did earlier, this is very substantially similar to what was shown at Finance Committee last week, and we'll gloss it a little bit more based on where we are this week. So, as Jay has totally accurately pointed out, the reason you all asked us to investigate this was because we're interested in reducing, first, where we can, non-instructional costs in the budget. And insurance is obviously vital, important, but it's not instructional in the sense that students aren't the direct beneficiaries. And as you voted at the last meeting, these are the numbers over the past 8 years, and they're significantly growing in raw dollars and in percentage of the budget. So you had made this motion at the prior board meeting and asked that we investigate this. and report to the Finance Committee, which we did about a week ago. Now, as background, the district and the town are currently fully insured by Connecticut, and the number of our active employees and retirees are indicated there separately for the district and the town, and per federal law and various collective bargaining agreements. Many of those people bring spouses or dependents into the plan. It's important to note, because I know the boards or a prior board spoke about this a few years ago, the benefit on the district side for retirees has been grandfathered for post-2020 hires, and that was done at the town level as well a few years prior. This number of people in the plan is simply very small. Granted, having 300 people in a plan is better than having 3, but it's still very small. And when there's a high number of, when there's a small number of high claims, the renewal rates jump, and that is what's happening. And Richard and I have been in conversations with the town, with our current broker, and with the insurance company. And while we can not share specifics, we can say at a high level of confidence that that second bullet is exactly the case. It's also worth saying that most of our employees belong to one of 4 collective bargaining associations, and by state law, the insurance particulars are mandatory subjects of bargaining. And then the arrangements we have in the collective bargaining association agreements typically apply with a few modifications sometimes to people in non-affiliated positions. The collective bargaining agreements also tend to have language regarding changes to insurance. And for purpose of this discussion, we could say that we would want any change in insurance, for example, a change in carrier, to be substantially equivalent coverage. And there's legal standards to meet in that regard. And in fact, that brings us to the next page quite nicely, because we want to, if we can, save money in relation to insurance, but we certainly don't want to do that on the back of the people who are benefiting from the insurance. That is not at all the objective. We have, and this I'll answer some of Jay's questions in speaking about this, we have received preliminary quotes based on some analysis of our pool. It's not a deep analysis of our pool. These aren't underwritten quotes, but they led us to present to the Finance Committee potential savings of $550,000. That is, as an option for this board, if you were interested in making some reductions to the current budget proposal, this would obviously be a direction to go in, because it's a sizable percentage of our budget to begin with. And use the same carrier at present. That relationship has been advantageous, but it may be both for the town and the board beneficial to go in different directions. And I'm just pointing out, we're pointing out on this slide that that's possible, right? And the town has been part of our conversation so far and feels that if we went in the direction that would benefit the taxpayers and the board, that they wouldn't quote hold that against us. You might also, of course, know that there's brokerage involved in insurance. Brokers tend to receive commissions for their services, or else they wouldn't do the work. And the board and the town have gone with the same broker in the past and could potentially make different decisions. Again, it's important for me to say that that's not a foregone conclusion by any means. It's just a fact that that is an option. So you see that tonight we're bringing you a potential revision, that it is the board's prerogative what you might want to do with that. If the board were to make a decision to reduce, we would bring that to the town as was mentioned, and we would start conversations with the collective bargaining association leaders to have solid conversations as the process evolves. But it's important to note that final quotes from insurance carriers and brokers wouldn't come until April. It's simply the timeline that they are on, so that they have the most up-to-date information they're working with. And then in April, a decision is made so it can be implemented by July 1st. There are some collective bargaining provisions as to how much notice must be given if there's a change of carrier. Again, if But also there's just a general, you don't want to wait until the last minute to do some of these things because they're logistically complicated. I think that the board has options in this regard, and perhaps it depends on where the board wants to put, how highly the board wants to gauge risk in relation to this. So based on our earlier conversations, these are, in our judgment, reasonable reductions that you could make, but it also would be reasonable for the board to hold off. So we have, if I can just stop sharing this and share the second presentation, because they just are kind of seamless into one another and then they go together. We mentioned briefly that we think there can be a revision of the electricity rate as well. So if you put those together, and you might ask, why is there a potential reduction to two different medical insurance lines? Our budget carries the active employees in a different place from the retired. And so Richard has allocated, proportionately here. But based on our work to date, one could make this set of revisions, and that would result in the top motion. Or alternatively, the board could say that you encourage Richard and me to continue to work. And in this phrasing of the second bullet, it's not just in the medical benefits, but to say, look, what are other reductions that could be achieved in non-instructional benefits and operations costs, and to talk about that with the Finance Committee and the Board of Education in February, right? It made sense. Whatever motion you make, it obviously made sense for us to start with potential reductions to the biggest non-instructional, non-salary item in the budget, the medical insurance. But there are other things in this category, be it other types of insurance like life, liability, etc., be it transportation. There's other things here, and we'd be happy to keep doing your work. But that's a report on where we are right now. And certainly either of us happy to answer any questions. I've tried to embed, Jay, answers to your questions as I've gone along, but if I failed to do that, you just call me out on it and we'll keep going.
Thank you, Jonathan. So we can do this one of two ways. And Jay, I'll leave it up to you because you were the chair of the Finance Committee. We can propose a motion and then have discussion on that motion, or we can have an opportunity to ask questions prior to any motion. Is that what you would like to do, Jay, or make the motion?
I think the latter is probably better because I think people may have questions on these, and I think it's better to have all the information before we decide which motion.
Perfect. Then I'll come back to you afterward for a motion, perhaps. Aaron, I'll start with you. Any questions on that?
I just want to make sure I'm fully understanding. So the numbers that were kind of thrown out in terms of the healthcare, that was without them knowing anything about our particular pool, right? So that was them taking kind of a guess at what an average pool would be. Is that correct?
May I have Richard answer that?
Sure. Whoever can answer it.
They had more than superficial knowledge. They can go to a carrier and get information. Now, is it an actuarial report? Probably not. But I've worked with this consultant in 5 other districts, and the numbers have always come in at or below what they predicted. So I have confidence in the numbers. I hope that answers your question.
It does. I think and this is just from our own experience. I work for a non-for-profit that's also small, that also has to deal with this every year. And so I guess my hesitation to going with the numbers and before they are finalized in terms of revising our budget to our town is I don't want to put, our town in a situation where we've kind of said to them, this is what we think, but then it doesn't come to fruition. And we then have to go back to the town and say, actually, the numbers came in higher, and especially with this line item, we really have no wiggle room in it. It is what it is, and so I guess I don't know if this is part of our discussion. I'm more inclined to go with the latter of the two options because I think honestly, it's more truthful to the town in saying we're still looking at this, we're really trying. These are some, Sheila's on here. I know that I'm sure we're talking with other people about what we're seeing, but I don't want to give the impression to the town that we have an assurance that it doesn't seem like we have. And that is my hesitation in revising the numbers. That's where I'm currently leaning. I can be swayed another way, but that. Thank you for that answer.
Thank you, Aaron. David?
I have no questions right now. Thanks.
Thank you. Jeff?
I guess my question is motion specific. We're just making a motion to encourage Jonathan and Richard to pursue these options, correct?
Well, that's one possible option, Jeff, or the other proposed option for a motion is to present a $550,000 reduction to the town. So, Jonathan, maybe you could share that screen so everybody could see that motion, or both of those motions. Yeah, great. And that might help you, Jeff. Okay, so do you see those two potential motions, Jeff?
Yes. So are both of them going to be presented? Are we voting on? I guess
Well,
my confusion
somebody
around
could make
process.
one of those motions, or somebody could make another motion.
I understand now. Okay.
Right. Anything else, Jeff?
Nope. Good.
Okay, Maria.
Thank you, Lynn. I echo Aaron and Jay's thoughts about, I think these are great strides in trying to see what we can do to reduce the budget operationally that does not impact our educators or our students. And I think we should continue to do that. I worry that even if the numbers come in April about where they say they are, but there's still, I'm worried that we're going to be able to be forced to come up with extra money in April because we've already reduced this amount in our budget proposal. I think we should continue to look at this and continue to look at the entire budget and see where else we can make adjustments so that we can not impact the students, not impact our teachers, but still, share that responsibility with the town to make sure that we're running a tight budget and that we are paying attention to, everything that's coming in and out and making appropriate decisions. I worry that if we commit to these numbers now, that might be a mistake when we get the final numbers and they turn out to be slightly different, even though we have them on, some educated knowledge. I also am wondering that timeline for April, will that timeline be in enough time to revise our budget for the final vote of the town? How is that working timeline wise?
So the town meeting that votes on the budget is in May. The preliminary budget hearing is in late April.
Okay, so we would need those.
The third Monday of May is the town meeting where a vote would be taken to approve the budget.
And can revisions be made up until that point?
I believe that's true, but I'm going to defer to Jonathan or Sheila for confirmation of that.
I would need to defer on that one too, Len. I'm sorry.
Okay, Sheila, can you help us out? Or Tom Handler might be on. Can either of you help us out?
This is Tom. I'm not sure either. I have to check. I mean, I think because we have the Board of Finance will have to, approve that preliminary budget before that April meeting. Presumably, anytime before the meeting where we approve that preliminary, adjustments can be made. And then clearly after the preliminary meeting, adjustments could be made. But I'm not sure exactly the timeline. We can get back to you on that.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we, you know, we would have those quotes in enough time to make an adjustment, but also in enough time for the town to take a look at it and, you know, consider those options. Thank you very much. I appreciate those answers.
Tom, thanks for helping out. I do remember, I do recall at one point, the Board of Ed made some changes at their March meeting. That had to be, we had a special meeting the end of March so that by the beginning of April, so that that information could be printed for the preliminary budget hearing. But I don't know what the real regulations are, so. Sarah Beth. Anything?
No, Lynn, thank you.
Brooke?
No. Oh,
Thank you. Mike?
No other questions for me. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. So, Jay? Do you have anything else you want to add?
I do. I think I could probably answer Maria's question. What we could do is as soon as we get some binding agreement on the quotes, as soon as we get the underwriter approval on issuing these quotes, I think we can come back hopefully in April, early April, or even at the end of March. We could set a date that meets with the town's requirement of the last update. And we could work around that. I think that's possible and feasible. And I'd like to reiterate, I'm a finance guy. I like to be prudent. I don't want to overpromise, or I think the committee and the board shouldn't overpromise at this stage, because that, as Maria mentioned, that could really impact our operating side of the budget. Now, when I talk about operating side, I'm talking about the kiddos and I'm talking about the teachers and the staff, etc. So here, this is non-instructional savings. Jonathan mentioned this. And I think we should look at all non-instructional savings or potential non-instructional savings and present this mandate to Jonathan and Richard to go out and see if we can increase that proposed 500,000 to a larger number that would take our 13.5% down to something that will be more manageable for everybody in the town. So we are trying to be extremely careful in terms of not over-promising, but at the same time, we're still working on reducing that increase that we've asked for, to work with the town on this, and to ensure that we are employing these valuable taxes that everybody is paying into town to the most optimal use that we can within the school. So I would propose that we motion on the second item on this particular slide.
So
I make that motion.
Okay, so I just have a comment, Jay, and then I'm gonna let you read the motion into the so that it can be written into the minutes of the meeting. I agree, Jay, with you. I think that I said it last month. I'm going to say it again, that I believe, I speak for myself certainly, but I think I believe I speak for every board member here that we want what's best for the kids and for education. Sheila also made that. It's just such an important thing in our community, but we also want to be respectful of the taxpayer. And I think that Richard and Jonathan's work and their commitment to continue to look for efficiencies in the budget. You know, one of the things that's so difficult is that we present our budget early on and we don't know what's going to happen. And insurance is always hanging up in the air for us, and as well as some other things. And I appreciate the work that the two of them have done and continue to do to look at every single line item in the budget for efficiencies and ways that we can make reductions so that we are respectful to the town and the community. So I appreciate your comments, Jay, and I appreciate Richard and Jonathan's work on continuing to do that with respect to our community, all of the community, the kids, the teachers, and the taxpayers. So now, Jay, I'm going to let you read whatever motion you want to make into the meeting, and then we'll go on from there.
Okay, I move that we encourage the continued efforts of the superintendent and the interim director of business services and operations to pursue reductions to non-instructional benefits and operations costs, with a report on such efforts to the Finance Committee and the Board of Education at the regular meetings in February 2022.
Thank you, Jay. And do I have a second?
I second that, Lynn.
Thank you, Jeff. So the motion was made by Jay, Marcia, and it was seconded by Jeff Hughes. Is there any need for any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'm going to call the roll for the vote. Aaron?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Maria?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Sarah Beth?
Yes.
Brooke?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I vote yes. The vote is unanimous. Thank you, board members. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Richard. Moving on to CABE liaison report. Maria, do you, or Sarah Beth, didn't ask which one of you were going to give the report. Maria, maybe, I know I talked to you a little bit about some of the things that were upcoming, so maybe you could jump in.
Sure, I'll jump in. There's two events coming up. The first is on the 27th, the listening workshop, and I am still, if anybody would like to attend that, please submit your names to Jonathan. He can sign us up for that. I've also talked to them. A lot of their workshops come through at sort of a, traditional business lunchtime, and I know a lot of us don't work a traditional business schedule. So I have written to the CABE directors asking if they can add some of these educational opportunities to their library. And they are considering that. I think they're working on a way to see how they can get people registered and still maintain some of their revenue, I think. But they are looking into that because I think there are some opportunities that are very valuable. And if we could access them at different times, it might be very helpful, especially to our board. So they are continuing to look into that. But the event on 127 is from noon to 1:15 about the art of listening. And also on the next day, on Friday, January 28th, District 7, of which we are a part, CABE District 7, of which we are a part, is having its legislative breakfast in Branford. And I have reached out to our representatives and state senators, our representative Mary Wielander and senators James Maroney and our Senator George Cabrera to see if they will be attending on Friday morning. So we have a chance to talk to them and to meet with them. And I'm still waiting for some responses for them, but I've, expressed that, some of us wanted to talk about some issues going on with funding and with this and at the state level. So that should be a good opportunity to reach out to our legislators as well. So please, if anybody would like to sign up for that breakfast, please reach out to Jonathan so that we could sign us up for that event as well. And that's all I have so far for the update.
Thanks, Maria. Sarah Beth, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, that was everything. Thanks, Maria.
Great. Next is upcoming meeting presentations. The February Board of Education meeting will include a presentation on diversity, equity, and inclusion in the Woodbridge School District. Is there anything specific that board members would like to see addressed in this presentation?
I think Dave spoke to it and Jonathan, but just if we're able to get the survey results, I think that'd be really critical. I think that, having a sense of what our community is saying back to us is really imperative. And then also, I think it would be helpful, and I believe that Maria has brought it up at the policy level, but just to talk about kind of when there is an incident in the school, we have the policy, but what are the procedures and how is that working in our school? How do we think that those procedures are or are not effective in addressing some of the issues that have come up this year? So I don't know if that's having Cheryl present or having, uh, community members who have gone through that process who might be willing to present. I'm not sure exactly who we would want there, but I do think that talking about both what has our community experienced, but also how are our mitigation and how are our procedures effective or how could they be improved is really important.
Thank you, Erin. Anything else that board members would like to see included? All right, so I'll encourage board that if you come up with anything in the next couple of weeks, prior to the, I believe, February, is it 28th? Yeah, February 28th board meeting. If you would reach out to Jonathan, I'm sure he'll include whatever you'd like to see in his presentation. So just for public information of note, the February meeting of the Board of Education will be held on the 4th Monday, which is February 28th, rather than the 3rd Monday, when the school will be closed in observance of President's Day. Also of note for public information, the Facilities Committee will meet on Tuesday, February 15th at 7:30 a.m. The Finance Committee will meet Wednesday, February 23rd at 4:30 p.m. The Policy Committee will meet that same day, Wednesday, February 23rd at 7 o'clock p.m. It's a little public service announcement. We're moving on to new business. Approval of open choice seats for 2022, 2023. Dr. Budd, that's you again.
Yes, you see the cover sheet, board members, in relation to open choice. We had some representative board members meet with me and some representatives from ACES, which is our RESC that administers open choice. And it was to discuss the goals of the program, some potential improvements to the program, et cetera. So I'll speak to that a little bit, but you'll note that there is certainly a programmatic goal of the open choice program, which is to enhance diversity and equity in the state. And there's also a fiscal benefit to the district, to our district, in participating, in that there is a base grant of $4,000 per student. At least for the past few years, we've had 18 students per year participating in open choice, which we take as a budget offset for $72,000. The board members who met with me and the ACES personnel asked that ACES solicit some testimonials from families of students in the program. And I believe that the testimonials they've sent me are all of students. I know they are from families of students currently in the program. So based on the board members' requests, I will read brief parts of these testimonials to you from the families. And there are three. So first, this set of parents writes the following. Both our children attend Beecher Road School, and we are very happy they do. While the last 2 years have been difficult, we can sense that we are part of a community figuring it out together. Even before COVID, we were part of that community in that our son was in several plays, after-school clubs, and participated in summer session. For both children, we want our kids to feel loved and supported at school. We know they learn best when that is the case. We feel that almost every staff, teacher, and administrator we've interacted with at Beecher Road School shares that vision. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of Beecher Road School. The second testimonial reads, The open choice program at Beecher Road School has been beneficial to our children, our family, and I think to the community we live in. My family has always participated in both the New Haven and Woodbridge communities, from events and businesses to organizations like scouting, sports, and camps. The school feels like an extension of this involvement and has spurred me to contribute to the parent-teacher organization at Beecher this year. My son is thriving, able to contribute to the newly forming fifth grade band, and has made friends with students both from New Haven and Woodbridge. And finally, this third, enrolling our child into Beecher Road School through the ACES Open Choice program has been invaluable to us. Our daughter has been attending Beecher Road School since kindergarten. She is now in one of our upper grades, and she has thrived both socially and academically in her time there. She is actively a part of the school life and culture, and all of her teachers and other school staff have reported over the years how much they have enjoyed having her in their classrooms. Allowing our child to have access to a safe and academically rigorous environment gives us as parents peace of mind when it comes to our child's education. Also, our daughter was part of the multi-age group from first to fourth grades at Beecher Road School, and it was the perfect educational fit for her style of learning. Through MAG, she has grown in her maturity, her social emotional leadership skills, and especially in her curiosity and love of learning. She would not have had access to this unique program in her home school district. We are so grateful for this opportunity to have our child be a part of the Beecher Road School community, and we look forward to her continuing education in the Woodbridge, Bethany, Amity School District going forward. And I'll just pause there to say, what a testimony to the great work that our school does for all types of different students. And every teacher, every administrator on this call should hear that message very loudly. I've presented a recommendation that we support the continued enrollment of 18 open choice students in Woodbridge. We will have 4 students graduating grade 6, and in looking with the team at our enrollments projections, it makes sense to place those 4 new students in kindergarten. That's where that number can be absorbed best next year. And also, we prefer when possible to have students at the lower grade levels because it reduces the chance of academic gaps happening. Finally, I will say that there are 2 issues that the representative board members spoke with the ACES team with me about. One was that in their current system, there's actually a pretty late cutoff date when we can get a new student from open choice. It's the end of September. And this board has had real problems dealing with that when students might have some additional needs. So ACES has talked to the state of Connecticut, and they're willing to pilot for us for this upcoming year a program where August 15th will be the strict cutoff. And that will allow us much better personnel planning, programmatic time for the kids, and also get them introduced to Beecher better, along with all the other incoming kindergartners, if you take my recommendation. The second topic relates to payment from the New Haven School District for students with needs documented that go above and beyond the $4,000. And that's a topic we'll be discussing in executive session. But this motion is before you tonight, and we need to vote because February 1st is the cutoff for this decision per the state. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jonathan. Okay, we'll have some discussion and questions. Erin?
Just because in our budget to the town, we note the need to add an additional kindergartner, can you speak to whether these 4 spaces will, like what impact they have on that additional kindergarten teacher? I just want to make sure this isn't the reason we need to add a kindergarten teacher and all of that.
Yeah, it's an excellent question. When we look at the specific numbers, and in kindergarten's always a projection, but with these 4 or without these 4, it seems abundantly clear we're going to need a 7th section of kindergarten, one way or another. So to put these students anywhere else would actually create a little bit of a problem.
Thank you.
David, do you have any questions? Hey, Jeff, do you have any questions?
No further questions.
Maria?
No further questions. Thank you, Erin. that question and Dr. Budd for clarifying.
Jay?
That was my same question, that it wasn't going to impact that additional classroom need.
Yeah, I
And
think
don't
we're
believe-
gonna ask that one.
And Jonathan, I
Like
think
the
it-
insurance, there's no promise on any of these things, but it doesn't appear so. Yeah.
Right. So my only sort of follow up would be that these four students would go into kindergarten. Is your recommendation?
The team's recommendation.
Absolutely.
Sarah Beth?
I don't know if my question can really be answered. I guess it's sort of what you're going to tell us in executive session. Is that going to, regarding the payment part, is that something that's going to be different than what we've heard before? Something life altering here?
Something mind altering? Is that what you said?
No, like very different to what has been the case so far. Something that would make me feel motivated in a different direction, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
I don't believe that it would, Sarah Beth, and I think I could say that there have been concerns expressed by the board in the past, this board and prior boards, about the extent to which the state has regulations that are sufficiently enforced related to excess costs. And we have good partnerships, I think, emerging legislatively and also with people in different school districts, but I believe some would still have some concerns about that. From my perspective, the recommendation is still the same, but to answer your question honestly, that is still a concern.
Brooke?
Do you want to say something?
I was just going to ask if there was any answer. But maybe it's not really an answer, but just when you talked with them, did they say anything about the fact that we somehow in a lottery do tend to get a lot of children with special needs? And not that there's anything wrong with that, but it would seem unfair if they're sort of handpicking students that, you know, have special needs.
Well, I would defer to some of the board members there with me, but I will say that they, the lottery for participation open choice is part and parcel of the lottery that's being done in New Haven public schools every year. So there are many factors to the lottery, but after they give preference to children whose siblings attend Beecher, it's a straight lottery, and they did speak to that. It's actually organized by a computer. There are many people there. There's 2 representatives from ACES, but a whole host of other people. They would say that they recruit widely and continue to try to do that to the best of their ability every year. But I would defer to the other board members for sure. They might have heard something I didn't.
I think the only,
Go ahead, Aaron. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Sarah, I think when what I heard was that, you know, parents are able to choose what school they want to put in for the lottery. So they don't, it's not just like they get into every, like they can choose, I want to go to Beecher. I want to be in Beecher. I want to go to, I'm making this up because I don't even know what's in it, North Branford, and I want to go to, you know, Cheshire. Those are the 3. And so I think because of our good reputation as it relates to our special education, it's one could assume that families who might have those needs may look towards our district and say, you know, this is a really good district for my kid because they do really care about this population. They do offer services. It sounded to me like about 20%, I think they said between 20 and 30 of their population just within open choice has IEPs. And so I think just the open choice has a higher percentage than our district in general. But I also think our schools, you know, we're a product of our reputation, right? It's like our reputation for being a really good school district probably means that the parents of kids who have these needs select our school maybe more than they do other school districts that maybe don't have the same reputation.
Jeff, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, almost word for word. We can only really deduce from our conversation that it's a testament to our special ed program and services here that parents of with children with special needs aim for Beecher Road. So I guess that's a kudos.
And also on the lottery, they don't have to say if their child has special ed needs.
Okay, Mike, any questions or comments?
No questions from me, thanks.
Thank you. I have one question, Jonathan. I don't know if there's an answer to this. So you mentioned that ACES agreed to pilot with us where the students would be chosen by August 15th. And we know that in the past that's been problematic in having them identify those students who are coming, sometimes up till almost the last day of the school before school opens. So my question is, where you're recommending taking 4 new students from kindergarten. If by August 15th, those students aren't identified, is that going to impact the number and the, I believe that the base grant of $4,000 is based on that 18 students. So would that then change for us?
Potentially, but that has happened in other years as well. For example, not this year, but the prior year. Some students, this was the first year of the pandemic, right? And some students who had been committed to attend Beecher in open choice withdrew in late August or September and couldn't be replaced in time. And Woodbridge received less money proportionately. So that's why they're comfortable with August 15th as a pilot, but not much earlier, because one of the issues you have is it's not just these 4, but for all sorts of reasons, the existing 14, any of the existing 14 can move somewhere else. And then we have to backfill, which is a tough word to use with a child, I know, but they're comfortable that August 15th will work, and we'll be on the radar to try to get the 18 students because, right, our budget gets built on that.
Right, so therein lies my concern that we're setting up a situation where we could end up with, rather than $4,000 for 17 students, for instance, only $3,000, which would have another impact on our budget. And so that's a bit disconcerting to me.
Yeah, I think it's a risk benefit either way. I even the September 30th deadline causes that risk, and that's what I think I was observing. Which the September 30th deadline, we lost a couple of kids before. The only way to guard against that, I would say, is to increase from 18, let's say, to 20. But that poses different problems. You know what I mean? So we're a little bit trying to stick a middle ground.
Okay, thank you. Are any other board comments? Go ahead, Jay.
Very quickly, I think it's testament to our special education services that it's not only ACES that maybe utilizes an appeals to our school appeals to them, but also people moving from out of the district. So what we notice is people from outside the district are moving into this district because we have excellent services that we provide in special ed. So I would argue that, irrespective on both sides, it's sort of the same thing. You're looking for the best thing for your child. You'll either be able to move into the district if you can, and if you can't, you're in New Haven County, you'll apply through ACES. So in a way, what I'm trying to sort of convey here is it's the same sort of thing. We would want to do the best for your own child. And so trying to draw that difference to say that New Haven County has a higher need vis-a-vis our existing population. I've noticed several cases where people have moved into the district to take advantage or to use our excellent special ed services. So in a way, I would say that was a bit of a washout. I don't know if Jonathan could talk to that.
I think on an individual basis, when we look at particular families, I think that is the case. And ACES has the opinion that there are people who from New Haven have their children come to Beecher and then are sufficiently happy with it that they actually move to Woodbridge as a result. Certainly not all of them, but some of them become residents of Woodbridge and then stop participating in open choice as a result.
Now, Jonathan, you talked about the 18 being the magic number, and you did allude to the fact that if we went a little higher. Now, what's the cost of going higher in kindergarten? Is there a number that we could go to, say 19 maybe, to ensure we hit the minimum of 18?
Yes, it becomes more and more hypothetical because we're at the kindergarten grade. I mean, you would not have any difference taking 5 in kindergarten as opposed to 4. I don't think increases the risk from that perspective. You'd be attaining $4,000 more for that extra student, and you'd be mitigating your risk in case somebody drops off. And I guess in case anybody who's less familiar with this is interested, like why 18 is the cutoff. Once we hit 2% of our population who are in open choice, we receive $4,000 per student. That's 18 for us. If we go below that, 17 or less, we get $3,000 a student. So that's a critical number, the 18. And you're right, you can guard against that a bit by going a bit higher.
Thank you, Jonathan. Anything else, board members? Okay, we need to take action on tonight because the decision needs to be made prior to February 1. So I will entertain a motion from someone, perhaps.
No one's.
Who's making the motion here? Anybody?
I will. I move that we adopt the superintendent's recommendation to authorize a continued enrollment of 18 open choice students in the Woodbridge School District, replacing the 4 students who will graduate grade 6 with 4 new students in kindergarten.
Do I have a second to that motion? Aaron? Okay, I'm going to call the roll. Aaron?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Jeff Hughes?
It's such a great program, but knowing the business dealings, I cannot vote for this. I vote no.
Okay, Maria?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Sarah Beth?
I also have to vote no, knowing our budget crisis, our school space crisis, and the fact that we've basically been used for many years, I am voting no.
Okay, Brooke?
I am voting no as well.
Mike?
Yes.
And I will vote yes. The motion carries 6-3. Thank you, board members. Next on the agenda is executive session. The board will enter into executive session in accordance with state statute for the purpose of discussion in regard to security and matters concerning pending claims and litigation. For the public's information, there may be action based on the items discussed in executive session when the board returns to public session. I'm looking for a motion to go into executive session, inviting Dr. Jonathan Budd. And is that it? Is it just you, Jonathan?
Yes.
Yeah. Inviting Dr. Jonathan Budd for discussion concerning security and pending litigation. Do I have that motion? Maria? Do I have a second? Jay? All those in favor? I'm gonna have to call the roll because some people are having connectivity issues and so I'm getting a spinning wheel for them. Either that or I'm having connectivity issues. Aaron?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Jeff? Yes, he's
Yes,
shaking.
I'm trying to get off mute.
That's okay. Maria?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Sarah Beth?
Yes.
Brooke,
Yes.
Mike? Mike, I can't hear you. Mike, can you give me thumbs up at least?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, wonderful. Thank you. And I vote yes, it's unanimous to move into executive session. Board members, Jonathan, have you sent a link for that? Jonathan has sent a link, and so we'll see you in 2 minutes, board members. Thank you. At 10:32 p.m. And we are up to potential action based on items discussed in executive session. Is there a motion, Maria?
Yes, I move that we authorize the superintendent to request from the town of Woodbridge an appropriation equaling the payment the town general fund is expected to receive from the New Haven Board of Education for student-specific costs to be applied against the Woodbridge School District's current expenses for special education, one-to-one teacher's assistance. Said request to be made as soon as possible subsequent to the town's receipt of such payment.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Aaron? Motion made by Maria Madonic, seconded by Aaron Williamson. I'll call the roll. Aaron?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Jeff? Maria?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Sarah Beth?
Yes.
Brooke?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I vote yes, it's unanimous. Marcia, thank you. We're up to public comment. Well, you're the only one for public comment. Seeing none, Dr. Ross, is there a motion to adjourn?
Indeed, I've missed having this chance. I move that we adjourn this meeting.
Thank you. At 10:34 p.m., David Ross moves that we adjourn. Maria Madonic seconds it. All in favor, signify by raising your hand. It's unanimous. Marcia? Marcia, thank you for hanging on. As always, Pua, thank you to you too. Have a good evening.